What's the biggest difference when it comes to producing episodic like this versus like film?
In the writer's room, I want to make sure that the story has it's a living being, and we want it to carry through seasons and have all these arcs, and it's a living being that keeps growing and growing and growing and growing until it dies out. And so I think as a producer doing episodic, I want to live in with these characters constantly. I want to live in with the director's mind, the creative's minds of the writer's room, and just keep the energy there for them. And I think for short film, it's a little bit different because you have a direct ending, start, middle, and end.
Molly, let's start with you since you're kind of the de facto lead of the sitcom. You kind of have to play off every other single character. What was maybe like the trickiest dynamic to figure out for you?
I would say my enemies to lovers arc with Brise. That was fun. We didn't get that much time together on screen, so when we did have scenes together, it felt like a little bit of pressure to like uphold a certain dynamic with him. But it was also really fun because backstage we're all so close, and then you have to go on stage and have a completely different dynamic with somebody, and it throws you for a loop a little bit. But we do our best to keep our jokes and our wit off stage as well as on, and so it was really fun to just kind of like play around with the certain improv aspect of being on stage with people.
And Olivia, let's jump to you, kind of going off of that. What was it like for you figuring out this like best friend dynamic with Charlie?
Well, I'll be honest, it was very, very easy. Molly is just such a great actress and so exciting to work off of. So I think it just became like instant chemistry of also being very insane, Offset, but just the fact of her work ethic and how she operates as an actor is very inspiring to me, so it makes me want to work even harder, and I think that kind of created like a respective balance. So we both decided to, work off each other, see what lines worked, see what lines didn't.
We'd hype each other up right before we had to walk on stage, and we would be cracking up, and then we'd have to pull it together just to get on.
So yeah, very easy.
Then Jocelyn, for you, you're playing a 30-year-old. Talk about what it's like getting in the mindset of a millennial. Like, where are you drawing from? How do you approach that?
I pulled inspiration from my mother, if she were to be a millennial, which I think she thinks she is. But yeah, it didn't really. It's not hard to imagine. I mean, it's just one generation different.
Thank you.
And yeah. And it's just like little ticks that millennials have, We all know them. And once you start filtering them in, they kind of just stick. So I am now a millennial. Honorary.
Can you guys talk a little bit about the experience of doing like a multicam sitcom in front of a live audience versus like short films in that kind of media?
I like to think of it as like the middle ground between stage and film, because there's so many things you need to take from stage, there's so many things you need to take from film in order to do a successful sitcom. There's so many things you need to just know and have drilled in you before you even step on the stage in the first place. It was interesting getting over that curve, but once we did, it was so much fun.
When you're playing to a live audience, you're trying to shoot to the back of the theater. When you're playing with a camera like I am right now, you're really only giving it 5 feet in front of you. So the sitcom was really kind of an outstanding opportunity to find that middle ground and kind of take a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, put them together to make something that I think was really, really fun.
I think both in student films and in the sitcom, you are surrounded by so many of SCAD students and professors, but I feel like the biggest difference for me was that you really got to explore with your characters a lot more with everyone and the writers as well, whereas with kind of a short film, you explore the character that is given. So yeah, I thought that was really fun.
It was certainly a learning experience, I think, because, we had the audience there, so we had to play to them, but we also had the cameras that were, and the cameras are going to catch everything. So just finding that balance of like not being too big, but also knowing that it's not quite purely naturalism. And, but knowing that it's easier to pull back than it is to push you forward. So just going for it and giving them more than we thought that they were looking for, and ended up working just right.
And also another very interesting thing was to figure out the relationships between characters. Like I'm thinking about when Nick comes in and is a totally different person and is kind of quote unquote cool Nick. We worked on what possible interactions Bryce, who's very, arrogant and just big all the time, how he would react to such a change of someone who kind of goes in his own way. So I think that was also an important thing, was like the relationships. Yeah.
Okay, come on, everybody. Drinks on me.
I'm getting a picture.